Start recording. Hey, we're live, everybody! RuneScape Herald number 3. We are here. It is awesome. With me today are two community members and RuneScape players that are both heavy into this game. It's your boy Dragon and Snappy. Dragon, Snappy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So, a lot of information to cover. I did not do it this week. There was necromancy buffs and nerfs, and then there was rebalancing of those buffs and nerfs. There's a new boss coming out. I don't know if you guys played the Ancient Awakening. I hope so, because I really want to talk about that.
Actually, not yet,
Yeah.
but my bad.
Oh, okay. I won't do it because I don't want to give spoilers. Is all.
No, you can. I mean, I've watched quest guides and stuff just to see what's going on. I'm just lazy. I never get around to doing the quest right away. So.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't mind if we actually did talk about it. That's cool.
No, yeah, that's okay.
And then patch notes, because I know how many people like to read through patch notes actually. And then at the end of every podcast, I love to do a bit of theory crafting to kind of pick the brain of the community and see what their thoughts on that subject would be if it were ever implemented. So let's just dive right on into this right now with. Let's just go through necromancy. So I will pull this up here for you guys. Yeah, necromancy combat changes, which was a huge deal. I mean, it was coming down the chain, but first off, before we get into this, what are you guys' thoughts?
I'll start.
Go
I
ahead.
can start.
Please.
I'll go with this. I love necromancy. I'm not gonna lie. I was a pretty mediocre player. I've been playing for 17 plus years. I have done a lot in the community. I have played a lot of this game. I find that necromancy has made it very easy for all players to do bossing, and that is one thing I really enjoy about it. You can go almost into any boss and complete, which I will say that on my main, I am so proud of myself. I finally beat Zuck, and that was a huge thing in necromancy. But on my iron, I'm still struggling a bit, but I'm there. So I can understand why people think it's too easy or don't like it, but I really find it smooth. I went back to Magic and some range, and I found it very clunky. I know they're updating it, which I'm pretty stoked about. But on the whole, I really like the skill. It does have its boring spots, but all skills do. So I found it very exciting, and I'm actually really enjoying it.
Dragon, what are
Anybody
your
else want
thoughts?
to go in on that? Yeah.
High level you guys are in general, but I mean, I have like 4K Warden and stuff, so I mean, I'm pretty experienced in all the bosses. I just think necromancy is was overtuned, and then I didn't think the nerfs actually hit that hard. I just think it feels a lot different based on the conjures. It's hard to gauge how much damage you have because your conjures are doing part of it, and then the active on the conjure abilities is really weird after how it was originally. So kind of like that they're doing the reverting of some of those changes. And if they update the other styles, I think it's going to feel more balanced. But gotta wait for the beta, which I'm pretty excited to do as well. But overall, I mean, I think the style is pretty simplistic, which is why it's easier. So if they did talk about on a live stream that they're planning on like reducing the number of core abilities, which is like your main basic rotation for mage range and melee, I think that would make it a lot easier for other players to get involved too. But at the same time, I like having some in-depth, unique abilities where it actually kind of gives you more of a choice of what you want to do. So I kind of like it overall as a whole, but I definitely think it needed the nerf. Whereas a lot of people, especially on Reddit, see it as what like gating it from access, which I don't consider it that. I just think that if something's too overpowered, it definitely needs to be balanced for the rest of the game, not just for somebody's personal
Absolutely.
benefit.
I will agree with that. I did get the cape after the nerf, I will say.
Oh, that's still good.
But no, it is true. I do agree with you a lot on that concept. It did need a big nerf. Go ahead.
It was, to me, Necromancy launched a little bit too strong, but I know they were trying to get a player base in motion, and with the events of the Hero Pass and Carlisle trying to sell off RuneScape, I understand what they were trying to go for, but I think they made it too powerful. Then they came in, knocked, set in the debuffs on it, and nerfed it. Then when they came to realize what they had done, they had scaled it down a bit too much. So now they're rebalancing it on Monday. They're kind of going midway with it, which is okay, but I don't know how that's going to affect the gameplay going forward. From my understanding, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, from my understanding, as long as it keeps a consistency with it, that people are still finding ease of use with the skill, I don't see it being that much of a problem. But on the site, combat changes. The launch of Necromancy has seen a surge in players stepping into the role of a new Necromancer, taking on all manners of adversaries with their new tools and skills. This has been an absolute joy to see, and we're looking forward to see these players continue to grow and experience PVMers. Again, they're trying to make the skill an ease of use skill for everybody to get into PVM, but I don't know if that's a good thing going forward. I feel like they need to focus on the skilling aspect of RuneScape more than the combat. Any thoughts on that?
Well, skilling, it takes a long time. Anybody who's done any skill from scratch, 0 to 99, 92 being halfway point, is a little overwhelming. And for skills that we don't hardly use in the game, except for as of late, like example, fire making, now we have incense sticks. I think that it really definitely needs an adjustment there until that kind of gets balanced for some of these other bigger skills. I think it's going to take a little bit for the community to embrace the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can kind of get.
Definitely. Go ahead.
Sorry. You can go ahead.
I was going to say there's definitely a big disparity in a lot of different skills and XP rates. Some skills like Necromancy, especially on launch, were extremely fast. Some skills can be very fast depending on what you're doing, but some skills, like a lot of the gatherer skills, fishing, mining, they're very, very abysmally slow.
Yes.
And I think that's for padding out playtime, I want to say, but
It could be, yeah. They could make the argument you're getting something for doing it, like you're just purely gaining fish, you're not spending a resource to do it, but I don't know.
Fishing is something that you do need in the game. You can't PVM or you can't boss or anything in the game without it. So I don't know why it's so gated. I think that it needs to be boosted a little bit. Same with cooking. It kind of goes with fishing.
Well,
yes, you can go buy GE money, but what about an Iron Man who doesn't? Has to do everything from scratch. Some of that stuff really kind of needs to be streamlined a little bit.
I mean, fishing to me, it's kind of one of those you can just chill and skill sort of things. You can do something else on the side, or maybe you have another account that you kind of want to focus on, so you just take your other and you go fish for a while, and then you have enough fish to do bossing with. But bringing it back over to PVM side, I don't see how fishing is gonna harm or boost like the PVM side. I want to say.
It's just a necessary evil we have to do in the game, unless you have
I feel
money
like,
to buy.
yeah, if fishing went up in XP, I feel like the expenses of PVMing could go up a little bit because not as many people will fish tens of thousands of sailfish. If they're getting more experience, they'll be done sooner.
Agreed.
But isn't sailfish still one of the most prized food for PVMing in the game right now?
Yeah, so you'd still get some people doing it for money making. I'm just saying you'd get out the people that are going for, say, 120s or 200 million
Okay, I do agree that once you
sooner if
hit,
experience rates were up.
yeah, I do agree that after 99, I think every skill after that should have like an increased XP boost. Kind of like divination. Every time you progress 10 levels, you get a boon for the next kind of thing, which would be nice.
Invention is really quick. I mean, honestly, even for being a skill that's supposed to be an elite skill and sit there and go ahead and you have to have all of these other skills to be able to even do it. I mean, you just unlocked it on your hardcore, Logan. But I mean, in the same respect, you look at the grind you had to go through just to get to it. But once you have it, it's like, let's just siphon this, let's siphon this. There's like 500K experience. If you had that chunk from a lot of these other skills to go down, I think that you would be finding a lot more people doing other skills as well.
The
I
pro-
mean, it just seems to be they're all jumbled into the same thing, 0 to 99. There's no jumps on anything else.
the problem with that is Frosty is I have nothing to augment on my hardcore. That's the
Oh,
problem.
I'm aware.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of just pushed invention a little bit too fast, and I didn't have the gear for augmentation to do it, so I had to sit there and disassemble a whole bunch more stuff, make a whole bunch more gizmos for additional XP to get up to 22 in order to make certain outfits and tools in order to siphon. So I'm kind of in
Yeah.
that scenario with my hardcore. I don't know how I want to progress with it. But going back to necromancy, I know that was a bit of a tangent. Uh, now that necromancy has settled in, there are two key areas of focus to tackle next based on your feedback. The high skilling balance of all styles and the desire to see some of necromancy's combat systems added to the other styles. Uh, we know these topics are really important to many of you. I don't know who they're talking to there. So you've been putting the pieces into place to enable a committed development effort in the months ahead. This will kick off with some initial rebalancing on Monday, followed by the launch of the combat beta on October 30th, to bring some of necromancy systems to the existing styles. Most importantly, a combat beta gives us great opportunity to work directly with PVMers on getting this right. Here's a rundown of what to expect in the near future for combat balancing, full patch notes, and what have you. Uh,
I really like their willingness to just completely change up, add remove abilities. I think just changing the crit system and changing the damage limits will be interesting. I don't know how much effect removing the damage caps will have, because, say, melee, you can hit the damage cap pretty regularly. I feel like with magic, very rarely do I ever hit 10k hits.
yeah,
I
when I
can't
Unlike
say for ranged. I
Tsunami,
don't use a lot of range.
I was gonna say for Magic, Tsunami is pretty much the only one that would consistently hit it. Otherwise, like the G staff spec can also hit it if it crits. But yeah, Mage
extenuate,
seems like it's gonna be pretty under powered since the Ruby bolts, I would assume, are going to do the 30k cap, which would triple the damage on your procs every 6 seconds. Which that seems like it's obviously would be the first thing that comes to mind as probably overtuned at the beginning of the beta, but I'm glad they actually are doing a beta because normally they just they'll say yeah, we're gonna nerf Gricko, here you go, 9 months later, a year later, whatever it was, and then you're just like, wow, that's it's
okay,
not the best time to be doing it, but
okay, as a high tier PVMer yourself, because you said you had a 4K Telos
yep.
push. Okay, overall, do you think this is going to help the game going forward?
I like the idea of it. I got to see how it plays out because, in general, I think um, if you watch their live stream on the official channel, they were talking about some of the changes they wanted to make, and like I said, one of them is reducing your basic abilities. I think, which is a good thing because so many of them basically do nothing. Like impact does the stun, but the ability damage is pretty low. But then you have rack, which has just been updated, so it's at a better place. But then you have your other abilities that like chain and stuff. They're situational, which I like better. So I think magic has the most variety, whereas like range, I think some of the abilities are just bad in general. They don't really add anything. They just have different damage numbers. So if they use the necromancy template to kind of adjust other combat styles, I think that's going to work a lot better for the entire game. But it's tough to see a good time frame because there are a lot of things that obviously sound broken, like melee. If you hit 330 or 430 Ks with an assault, I mean that's 120k damage in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's not going to be balanced at all. So I'm just wondering.
That's enough
Um,
to delete most bosses in the game.
well, yeah, that's the thing. You'll get 10-second Vindy kills, and then everybody's gonna be like, maybe this isn't the best idea. But they would have to do, obviously a lot of bounce work on each ability. So it remains to be seen, like overall how good it is, because like I said, melee probably hits the most 30Ks. Magic doesn't, so Magic goes, back on the spot where people are posting the memes on Reddit of it drowning.
It's
So
going to be that way. They even hinted that melee is going to probably be best in slot when it all drops.
Yeah, I keep hearing buy melee gear right now because it's going to
Yeah,
be the
buy
meta.
melee gear. It's going to be the meta. Yeah, I've heard it from a lot of people too.
Prices are increasing across the board for other styles. Again, back to closer to their old prices.
Which is
Like
good.
Bolg is back up above 3 billion, I think.
yeah, and the faction stat for some reason still went up after even what I just said about it not hitting the damage cap. So, like I said, with the G staff and Tsunami, those are the only two I can think of. I don't think people realize like Wild Magic probably caps at 8K. Omni Power hits probably cap because they were designed for the damage cap rather than against it. So I'm sure there's a lot of changes that they're probably thinking about making, but without knowing what that information is, I personally just would not buy anything. I would just wait and see because I don't think they're really going to leave it unbalanced and never actually release it in that state. There might be momentary times where other styles are good, but obviously, like right now, necromancy is the best. They're not going to just replace their newest skill and make it dead content, right?
No, I would agree
No,
with that.
I don't think they could ever make anything dead content unless you count mini games. But yeah, I see what you guys are getting at with how just wait and see what the combat beta brings for us on Monday. But necromancy, I feel, is their star child, and they want to focus heavily on that.
It's just because it's also new. It takes a little bit in all skills. When they introduce something new, it takes a little bit for them to put in a nerf or they fix it or they adjust it or anything like that. They also like to let it play for a good 9 months or so to a year before they do start adjusting things.
Yeah.
It is very new. They want everybody to try it, so they are going to hype it up and pump it up. That's just what they've done since the beginning of time. So I can't see them doing any type of a big nerf to this skill, not for a long time yet. They just did by accident, I believe, because I think they really want people to play it. So I really think that the imbalance will bring more players to play all skills, but most of them will stick to the necromancy. It's smooth. I hope the combat goes with magic and I hope it goes with range just as smooth. Like, I mean, melee's always been smooth. You walk in, you smack hash, and there you go, you're done. But I
Yeah.
mean, with
So
with
in necromancy
the other two,
balancing
yeah,
update, in the short
yeah.
term, we also want to address necromancy's presence and strengths as a combat style. With that in mind, we want to make a few adjustments as we prepare to take steps towards combat balancing on a larger discussion. Here's what we're bringing into the game next week. We're adjusting conjured spirits to tone down their power level while improving their quality of unlife. Funny. Adrenaline costs have been removed from all conjure and command abilities, which I felt was a really good aspect of it because they were so adrenaline heavy. You were basically left with 10% after summoning both your ghost and your zombie. And then even getting the commands off, you couldn't do that until you were above 70% again.
Definitely weren't using so like all your boss skills. If the boss is faster, it would be better for you to use necromancy at, because basically once the conjures die, it wasn't worth resummoning in the upkeep to. I mean, most of them, but prime example, like Raziel is like a 1 minute kill, so all your conjures would basically survive if you have the tier 95 gear and you do the life transfer before you go in. So that's a perfect example. Otherwise, when I was doing Raksha kills, I could actually get 2 life transfers in, and that was just enough damage to help like extend the kill long enough where they would have impact, because there's the transition part, and Raksha's immune. So anytime there's an immunity in the boss, so you could extend them, but without having them, like the damage is really bad. So without conjures, I think the style would have been even maybe undertuned compared to the other style. So it's just that one aspect. It seems like they are not having a hard time balancing, but a hard time of figuring out exactly where they want to put it. And I think we all know that one of the boss rewards most likely is going to be the fourth conjure. So when they add that, I wonder if we're just going to be right back to the spot we were at, where they might need to apply an additional nerf when you have that fourth conjure coming up.
Yeah. But that also plays into their new ability that I think is coming out Monday, or it might be coming out during the boss drop. It says we'll be introducing a new ability, Conjure Undead Army. This ability requires 99 Necromancy and is available at Tier 7 on the Well of Souls and Talent Tree. This ability allows players to conjure multiple spirits at once. Ectoplasm cost will be equal to... Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I really like that group conjure ability. I do a lot of hard mode Zuck, and between about every wave, you would spend almost all your time sitting there hitting conjure zombie, conjure warrior, conjure ghost. Use the what's the haunted thing with
Yeah.
the ghost, and that just made everything really painful to just sit there and do that between every wave. Now with the group summon, it's really nice, just poof them all into existence, and you don't have to. You have a second to breathe then.
Yeah.
And it just feels a lot smoother.
So what they have in this little demonstration here is 4 slots, and we know we're going to get a 4th conjurer, which is nice. But to... okay, I don't know how I want to phrase this. Is this going to be good for combat? Being as, is it going to take all these abilities, just force them into one, and then you still get... you still have the abilities to use like the woo, the zombies explode, and other things. Are those going to be their own independent abilities now, is what I'm wondering.
The group conjure is in the game already.
Oh, it's all...
Yeah.
When did they...
I've been using it.
Oh, I didn't even...
It works.
It came in on Monday.
With the nerfs?
Yeah, with the nerfs.
Yeah.
So it works really well as far as summoning everything. But they have a lot of slots on there, implying that they're gonna be adding more conjures in the future. So I wonder if they're gonna take the route of just different conjures have different effects. But yeah, I mean it's already in the game, but you have to activate each special individually. So
okay, that was what I was wondering, because I hadn't seen it yet. I've been kind of busy with college at the moment. So with...
I suspect they plan to add many more conjures. Like I could see them having 6, 7 conjures, and you use that group to get them all out there. But you got to choose what you want.
Oh,
worth the time investment, because each special still takes the full global cooldown, which I don't have a problem with. A lot of people seem to think they should just remove all that stuff, but I think it's part of the gameplay of choice, where you're actually choosing, yeah, it's worth this, or no, it's not worth using this ability at this time. So, I mean, it's only 1.8 seconds, and people are saying, oh, yeah, well, it's already so low, you might as well remove it entirely. But to me, that just, again, adds to the higher tier of player. They're just going to be able to do even more damage without having to use that time. Whereas lower level players, it's going to give them more damage overall, because anytime you use abilities that you don't have to actually interact with, or you're just using them, like the Slayer abilities, it doesn't really add anything to your like what I would call mental stack of things you're balancing or juggling while you're in combat. So um, I just think that they have it in a good place as far as activations, because once you're 4 conjures down the line, you might want to use just one special. Like, you never use the zombie special when you're in a boss encounter, but you always want to use Haunt because it does give you good value. Whereas the zombie, it will do some damage over the kill, but if you use the special, you're just wasting it. It's not going to do any damage after it dies. So there's a good balance of, I use this activation because I want the effect versus I'm just using it because it's off a global cooldown, so it doesn't affect me at all as far as decision making.
Okay. So necromancy is going to be more ability heavy compared to equipment heavy.
Yeah, which is how I think all styles should be, honestly. Uh, as a prime
Yeah.
example, if you want to use the what the blast diffusion boots as an example, they allow you to charge your detonate faster, which is based around the ability, but it has a hard equipment requirement. I think in cases like that, they should just add like a new ability codex where you destroy your previous item and add it, so that way you're not bound by equipment. And I think that's what Necromancy probably did the best, is it is actually ability based rather than equipment based. You get some effects from the tier 95, but all your abilities don't require you to have a specific item. They just enhance the abilities as is by using the items, and it's not so overtuned that like using other gear doesn't feel as bad, because the time delay on detonate is a prime example of like what feels bad, because if you don't use those boots, that extra time, it just feels bad in general because of the way the tick system interacts. You have to wait the full tick. You can't just use immediately. So stuff like that is, people usually don't even think about that, but abilities are what you should be interacting with, not, oh, can I switch 10 different pieces of equipment like melee does currently, or for necromancy there's not even a shield switch necessary, but it does help. So
Because you already have your shield equipped with lesser bone shield, basically.
yeah,
And
lesser
I,
or greater bone shield, yeah.
I think I like that for necromancy. It's not switchscape heavy, which I know Jagex is trying to move away from. But in so I don't know how that's going to play out with the other styles if they're trying to go the route of necromancy. Like I so the rings, the Reaver's ring, Stalker, Channelers, and uh, Champions rings. I know that they had an enchantment put upon them, kind of like what you were saying, destroy the item, and then you get the ability for it. Uh, I think that would be a good thing going forward, doing like an enchantment system to where you can still get the passive effect, kind of like the passive Ring of Vigor now would be a good.
the difference the difference that I'm talking about is taking existing equipment that require you to wear that equipment to affect an ability, to straight up just removing that equipment via some kind of what you would call
Like
like
a
a
plant
recipe.
switch kind of thing. Is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking
Yeah.
so
of?
how they just straight up took your components, so instead of to have that perk as a switch, they just increased the ability, making a greater ability. So as an example, like the Carapax wrist straps.
Yes.
So say you make the enhanced version, and Vorkath drops a like uncharged greater combust codex, and you use the two together to unlock greater combust. And instead of adding like an insane amount of power creep, all it does is make that effect from wearing the gloves a passive. So like if you're doing a boss where it's weak to poison, you're obviously going to use Cinderbanes instead. Then you don't need a glove switch, and a boot switch, and a ring switch, and a shield switch. So it keeps switch cape down to a minimum.
Yep.
But if you're Iron Man, or you're just somebody that hasn't been able to afford the unlock yet, you can still get that effect by wearing the equipment until you're able to get to the end part, which would be just enhancing the ability itself by removing that gear. Which, if you do it that way, it still gives value to items that are going to be basically removed if you were to just add a codex that doesn't interact with the other content. So it keeps the value of your wrist straps. It keeps the value of this like uncharged codex that boss would drop, and then it also the enhancement piece from what is it, the Glacier, all that stuff is affected, so that way, it maintains its value, but then you also can just use the effect without having these, like I said, these extra switches and this. Um, I would say it's bad interaction with combat in general.
Yeah, and I want to see what this combat beta brings for the others, because necromancy, as you were saying, very not so switchscape heavy is a good thing, because that gives you more inventory space for food, potions, and you're not cluttered with. Although I do wish they would bring us a rune pouch. Very much, I want a rune pouch for
I know we need
necromancy.
that.
It does sound like that's part of the new boss reward. If you read between the lines, that it was they said it was a container though, not a rune pouch. So I think it's gonna hold all the runes, ectoplasm, and kind of like that. It's gonna be the everything I need to summon necro stuff is going to be like linked to it.
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't know if
not
there's something else,
the
but
rune pouch, but some kind of necromancy bag that goes in the ammo
right,
slot.
I kind of hope it
right.
uses magical thread though, just to kind of give more uh, incentive to do rune crafting in a way. I
Or maybe something that you need to do rituals for to modify it or upgrade it like we did with the gear.
Okay, that I can
The
actually get
quest.
behind, but I know a lot of people are still mad about rituals
I think
because
rituals are fine. I mean, I don't see the
I thought it
issue with
was
them.
cool we had the balance.
yeah, but as
I
I was
liked it.
as I was telling Frosty here, it still felt like even though they were making necromancy a everybody can do it, it still felt like an elite skill basically with the rituals to a certain extent. But yeah, I could get behind using magical thread in a ritual to use it for making the urn or the container, which would be nice. But would it go into your pocket slot where the rune pouch is? Because Frosty here taught me how to use the prism of restoration for your familiar for reavers, and that is actually really broken with the ghost now. So I don't know if can we still use runes.
I think it need Yeah, I think it need to go in the pockets or in the ammo slot like the rune pouches do. And I think it would be a matter of trade off. Are you gonna have necromancy runes taking up your inventory, regular runes, or not take up your inventory with runes and only have one of them in your pouch?
I think no matter what, you're gonna have to balance it to that because it's just gonna be another pocket side item in my mind. I don't see them changing kind of the way the either use the quiver, the rune pouch, or the necromancy container. And then you obviously can still bring like extra rune pouches. So I mean, I don't see it being an issue
No,
really
they take up
when it
one
comes down
space.
to it.
I just take an extra room pouch when I do my bossing and then what have you, like what I was doing Zuck with the Reaver. And when I was just healing my Reaver, I just had an extra pouch and I still had all those
Yep.
slots for my necromancy.
When I was doing magic, I had at Zuck, I had 3 rune pouches I'd bring with me.
Yeah, it's usually the way
Yeah,
I
you
go
gotta
when I'm
have
doing any type of magic. Yeah, all of
all the
them.
runes you can.
I mean, I use 4 for high enraged telos. So I mean, it's for magic. It seems kind of annoying that they don't just make. I would say specifically for magic. I wouldn't mind saying like a pouch that holds everything. Um,
So
but I just don't know why they don't want to go that route. Like I said, I'm big into convenience, but still using um the cost of the original items to make the effect. So you would still need to buy like 4 rune pouches and then maybe an extra additional 100 magical thread, but then the guy in the rune crafting guild will give you a ridiculous 16 slot rune pouch, but again it costs the same amount. It just lessens the inventory because personally, like I said, I just don't like battling the inventory or the management of resources. I like the abilities being the primary focus of anything that you're doing. So
yeah, especially with
Definitely.
runes, especially with RS3 being ability focus after EOC compared to old school, which is kind of just point and click. It's
Right.
more interactive now, but so let's
And necromancy kind of forces you to be interactive.
yes, which is good. I kind of like
I
that
like
aspect.
that.
It
Uh,
feels like you have a good arsenal of stuff to use. It just feels good.
yeah.
It does. And with
So
the incantations and the way they've balanced it, I like it.
so with the other combat styles, should they go the role, not the role, but the way of how necromancy has made it so easy to do combat now? Is that
I don't know that it made it easy. It just made you have to learn things that weren't easy to learn just on your own usually. Like magic, instead you have your big giant 5 or 6 things of rev bar, and you had to learn to manually activate your thresholds and stuff. But now manually activating almost everything, I feel like it's forcing people to learn to use their abilities.
yeah? So combat beta is going to be dropping on October 30th, which is this Monday. As mentioned, we're going to be continue to iterate on combat adjustments as we look towards a combat beta with more changes for the other combat styles on October 30th. Just a lot of wording there. The goal of the beta is to get the combat system changes into players' hands, get player feedback and direction into the development and flow, and try out a few ideas on how to improve the combat skills. This will be one part of this process, as reworking the combat styles is an extensive project, with each style having its quirks and eccentricities that need refinement, and we want to bring players along on this journey. The core 3 changes that are going into the first beta release are: enable damage potential for all combat styles for the player. This is the removal of hit chance and instead a damage scaler based on percent chance to hit, e.g., 50% equals do 50% of your damage instead of having a 50% chance to miss, which is basically saying, hey, we're doing away with the old defense system. The higher your defense, the more likely somebody's not going to hit you, to where it's just a flat 50% hit chance now, which is good. Uh,
I agree. I like that change just because splashing in general just feels bad. But even if you get mitigated damage, there's some balance in between zero and obviously your hit. So I think that was something that they should have been looking at a long time ago. I don't know why that wasn't part of like the original
I just don't think
AOC
that.
design either.
I think with how old the other three combat styles are, they needed a new one in order to gauge how they would go about that, is my thinking. Uh,
I mean, it makes sense. They had obviously done that, so they're trying to be a little bit careful. And then when you start from the ground up, it's a lot easier to balance against itself rather than balance all three at the same time versus each other. That's why I think once they decided it was going to be a new combat skill, they were like, okay, this is going to be how we're going to design it, and then it is basically laying the groundwork to go back and adjust the other three, which is why combat beta seems like a great idea at this point.
which is okay. This is sort of a tangent, but my understand or my thought process is they're going to be doing this for whenever they start the project groundwork for RuneScape 4, which I think is going to be an Unreal Engine. But that's just me thinking tangent wise. Uh,
Yeah.
the increase. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, thematically, not missing makes sense. If you're, say, level 1 means you have no clue what you're doing in real life with a weapon, and 99 means you're some kind of professional. Above like level 40, you shouldn't be missing. Like if you swing your sword at something, you're going to at least hit your target. They might deflect it, but you're not gonna just swipe completely beside them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like D&D. Oh, I rolled a natural one.
That's
I just,
basically what splashing. Yeah, that's what
but
splashing is. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, thank God RuneScape does not use Baldur Gate rolls. I
Oh,
I
don't.
I
can't
love
stand
Baldur's
it
Gate.
when yeah, I love Baldur's Gate too, but I can't stand splashing. I don't even know why it's a thing. I'd rather hit a 2 than hit nothing at all. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
I'm glad
Well,
that they're changing it. I mean, yeah, you have a lower character. Obviously, you're not going to hit as well as a higher character does or higher in that skill. But in the same respect, you work really hard. You're trying to get that Slayer monster down or whatever you're hitting in the game. You don't want to just aim your weapon and nothing happens. It's frustrating. It doesn't make for fun gameplay. I think that splashing is a thing. It does happen, but to mitigate damage, to make it come down a little bit, at least to make it like a wimpy hit as opposed to a big hit, that's fine with me. I wish they would have done that ages ago.
yeah. So increasing the damage cap for all combat styles. This is an increase from 10k to 12k up to 30k,
It
which
needs to happen.
that's crazy. That means the Jazz book is going to go through the roof. It's going to be better than a grimoire, I think.
yes, but yeah, they could look at rebalancing. I think some of those things because I agree. The Book of Joss pretty much is by far the best on necromancy. I've tried all the other ones, but you get basically a guaranteed 30k damage output because you're doing so much damage in general. So, and then you don't have to take any damage like the Book of Full, and then when just in comparison because it was based around that 10k hit cap, it's not even close to what the other ones can do.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
they'll rebalance all the books as well?
Um,
Like, how are
I
they going to rebalance all the gear that gives extra bonuses
I
to
think
the
the
skill?
bonuses are fine. It's the ability ranges because they said that they had the ability now where they're setting up abilities so that way when they go to change the numbers, it just changes the numbers so they could tone down a lot more damage ranges based on the ability percentages rather than have to like go to each individual ability and kind of like rework it. So I think that would give them the opportunity to actually make it make sense when it comes to not touching gear so much at the beginning and just adjusting the abilities themselves because that's really what is going to affect everything the most.
But doesn't this make
Okay.
a grimoire basically useless because didn't it make you
Yeah, so it increases the um, cap. Currently, they said it's going to be removed with the beta, but it still gives 12% critical hit chance, which hit chance is different than the crit damage. So it sounds like everybody on all styles, your base crit chance is going to be 10% now, but with an extra 12, I mean that's pretty huge. And then anytime you crit, you're rolling a higher number, so it's still going to be effective. It just might not, be as strong as it was by not increasing the hit cap.
so we're just going to so we're
They
still going
just
to
might
have
have
the
to change that up.
yeah, we're still going to have critical hit chance there, which is good because I remember playing around with the numbers with a friend and just using the Reaver's Ring, uh, Carapax wrist wraps. Oh, what else were we using? We used the Gothic staff debuff, and then we were trying to vulnerability, and the Bandos book because I didn't have Scripture of Josh yet. We were sitting there calculating out the hit chance, and it was getting absurd with how much you could stack it just with that baseline. But
There's other things that are going to factor into it because this is probably 6 months ago, before all this stuff came out and was announced, before Necromancy, there was the melee specials rework, and one of them that didn't get released was a Statius Warhammer buff, which would give armor penetration. So that's something that we haven't seen yet, and I think that's after they do the combat beta. What they're looking at doing is adding armor penetration, which just basically means it's going to give you that extra damage whether your accuracy is there or not. So there's a lot more like effects that they can add or things that they're probably looking at to um, kind of adjust things where um, armor penetration would probably be better for like lower levels, but it may still be used if it exceeds like not the hit cap, but like your personal hit cap. So instead of doing 100% of your damage, your range doesn't just cap at 100% of your ability damage; it goes to 125%. So when you crit, it could be part of that armor penetration um, that they haven't released yet into anything that they're looking at adding for the future, rather than being reliant on crit. Armor penetration would just be like a flat guaranteed, in that case a spec weapon where you choose to do the ability and it's going to enhance what you can do going forward. So there's just a lot of like unknowns as far as damage output, and I think it's better to have the combat beta in general, just because you can get so many more people to test it. Otherwise, internal testing would take, I mean,
Forever.
months if you actually play as much as all the dedicated players that we have. So like, I think they're just more gathering
Well,
the information and trying to set the scale of how they could actually pull off the entire update.
I know that there's still a lot of dedicated players in RS3, but there's not a lot of dedicated streamers anymore, which I find to be sad because they all moved over to old school with how stale necromancy made the combat in RS3. It was just necromancy this, necromancy that. There was no once
The top
you
end, that's the only style. That's the problem.
yeah.
And that's why it is stale. It's because at the top end it just does the most damage, and there's nothing else that even comes close. So there's no reason to use anything else. And this
Yeah.
is specifically, like I said, for the top end. So I
Yeah.
understand why people feel like that, but me personally, I don't know. I feel differently about it. I feel like I'm just, you know, um, in a
Waiting.
position where I want to continuously improve on these small little things over time. And once they make the changes to balance the other styles, I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at coming back, or at least playing more.
Well, once they introduce more content instead of just, you know, major updates. But yeah, I think this combat beta is going to be a good thing. It's going to give. I think they're going to have. The last combat beta I remember, they had like a person that was giving out all this test material and armor and weapons. Would they do the same for this combat beta? To where you could just grab the gear, go out and
Oh yeah,
start testing
like
it?
a NPC that you trade and just buy everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had already talked about adding something like that. Like I said, a lot of that information was on the live stream that I watched. So
Yeah.
they were talking about adding that where you can get, just a perk maker, puts any perks you want on, which is also another thing, huge pet peeve of mine, that we can't, I don't care, disassemble a Telos weapon to get max perks or something like that. I'm kind of annoyed that they haven't done that yet, but I
Or
know
we
it's
can
progress in time, but stuff like that also
or you
is
can
going to
still get a
affect.
failed chance on a precise 6 aftershock
Yeah,
1.
yeah, yep. Stuff like that.
Oh,
There was a
that's
post on Reddit,
I've
actually, somebody talking about how they have to go to the God Wars area because it drains your stats to get the perfect roll chance on invention stuff.
yep.
I just think it's kind of ridiculous at this point, but I mean that's kind of a tangent here. But
S-
yes,
So
perks testing on there.
I've tried 3 times on my iron to get precise 6 aftershock 1. All 3 times I have failed to do so. It is always given me aftershock 1. And I don't know why. It blows my mind because I've just wasted all those Illujonkin components and Armadillo components. It's just I don't know how to put it into
Yeah.
words. It makes me sad because now I have to go back to Armadillo. My drop, I'm not lucky anywhere. Uh, but yeah, I think they do need to do some skill tuning, not so much combat tuning. I'm glad that they're doing this, but I'll save my theory crafting for the end. The combat refinements that they went over on necromancy, we kind of already covered that. Putrid zombie, passive rate 3 seconds to 1.8. Base duration 30 seconds to 42, so that was an increase. Heal value of the ghost was. Wait. Yeah, contraventional ghost. Heal value was 125%, and then they put it up to 140%, which was 15%. I thought they had reduced that, though, to where it wasn't healing as much because it was just too powerful. Command.
They did change it, I think.
They
They changed it from
nerfed it
being
too
some
hard.
base amount to being based on ability damage.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they made some kind of change where it's like on hit of the ghost rather than on your ability damage or something like that. I didn't really read that part, but they nerfed the percentage and now they're bringing it back up with the update coming. So I don't know exactly.
Well,
I normally just test it out versus my previous boss times to kind of feel the difference.
yeah.
There's one thing to read it, and it's another thing to actually feel it in practice.
Yeah, I have it pulled up right here, and it says the heal value of it was 125%, and it went up to 140%, which is a plus 15%. Sustain is one of the necromancy strengths, but this reduction has a large impact when factoring in surrounding changes. So we have bumped up the healing to smooth this out. So they bumped it up.
It's a good move.
Yeah. Command Vengeful Ghost ability, duration 30 seconds down to 0 seconds. With this recent change, we've created some friction when using the ability. So, with this in mind, we're happy to remove the 30-second duration that was added to the Vengeful Ghost. Command Vengeful Ghost ability, returning it to a single action, which lasts for the full duration of the spirit, which is good. I think having it only for 30 seconds was kind of lame.
It was awkward.
Yeah, because then you'd have your ghost there for like an extra 12 seconds or so if you used the life transfer. No, you'd have. So it'd run out in 30 seconds. You'd have 10 seconds left. You'd use your life transfer, and then you'd have to wait an additional 30 seconds. And by then, your ghost is already down to 20, so you're not getting the full duration of another woo kind of thing. And that just felt clunky. But
Lucky to have to reactivate it from previously where you don't activate it at all. But also, like I said, since there was no activation, like time spent, you almost feel like you're wasting an ability to do the extension rather than like what it was before. It didn't feel like a waste because you could do it before the fight started, or the duration is so much longer that because you can use life transfer and stuff, it would those become more valuable as well.
yeah. So overall, I think the refinements weren't as bad. I think they just went a little bit too hard on them. And that's why we're going to get a rebalance on Monday where they're kind of going in the middle with a few of them. But I kind of want to move on to this new boss and graphical updates that they showcased yesterday on their stream. I'm actually kind of interested. I hope my theory comes to fruition and we get a undead dragonkin elite dungeon because that'd be cool. Zomnagul has succeeded in resurrecting the ancient dragon Vorkath on Ungale. Together with the undead army, Zomnagul plans to destroy all of Varrock, and only Fort Firenthry stands in his way. I don't know how our little fort stands in his way because, it's kind of off to the side of Varrock. I mean, he could just go straight to Varrock and not even bother about our fort. That's my own thoughts. Our new boss battle takes place during a siege of Fort Firenthry as you make a last stand against Zomnagul. It'll be down to you to beat back the undead siege, including facing down Zomnagul and Vorkath in a deadly duel. This new boss can be fought with any combat style across 3 difficulties: story, normal, and hard mode. Alone or with a group, with new ranged and necromancy drops to pursue. We will have a full blog to showcase more closer to launch. If you want to be ready for the fight, you'll need to complete Fort Firenthry storyline up to Ancient Awakening and have a necromancy level of 60. Here's the full list of requirements, and it just gives you like a full list of requirements and skills. And then they go into the combat beta. And then they're doing a graphic overhaul of the elf lands, which kind of looks cool.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, get rid of the damn traps, Jagex. I hate those fucking things. Sorry, but not sorry. I hate it. You can have 99 agility and go across the spike trap and you still get hit repeatedly. No. Remove it.
Sorry,
So
that's funny.
that's kind of the thing that they're looking at right now as the next combat. I like that they're giving 3 difficulties: story, normal, and hard mode. Please make it an elite dungeon. I want an undead dragonkin dungeon. So, I'll just let you guys go free on this one. What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't really have any thoughts on that. I think we have. I just like to see another dungeon. I just want to see another boss. It's always exciting when something else comes into the game.
But do you think it
Over
should
and
be
above that,
okay? I guess I should have worded this differently. Should it be scaled up like Zamrock Dungeon, where it's always a world's first kind of thing, and you have to go through an entire dungeon just to get to the boss, get 25 clears, and then you can do the boss kind of thing? Should it be that going forward, or should it be kind of like previous Elite dungeons?
I think they need to dial that down to like 10 kills.
yeah, I would agree with that too.
So,
Smaller
If they could do
amounts.
it as an elite,
so
yeah.
yeah. So do it as an elite
I
dungeon,
guess.
scale it back down to 10 kills instead of the 25. Because I thought the
I guess personally
25
I
wasn't bad.
disagree, but yeah, I think 25 is actually a good number. It'd be different if it was like 100. That seems like way too many, but then again, really isn't that much. But also, I mean, I did all 25 in first 2 days on release, so I always, I guess, have a hard time understanding why 25 was too big. Because for Elite Dungeons 1, 2, and 3, I think they should go back and change that, so that way you can rinse the boss. But I would like to see drop chances for full clears be actually better. But me personally, I just don't like running the trash mobs. I prefer to kill the bosses. So
That's understandable, but a
Right.
lot of people like running the trash mobs for money and XP now, because isn't Zamorakian Dungeon like ED3 with money and XP?
you actually make more money because of the enchantments. You get that resource from there, so they actually are, I would say, better overall trash mobs to run than any of the other previous elite dungeons. So I think that's a big part of it. But there's also some things that aren't so fun, which is just um, the stuff that you need to do them efficiently. Is the Demon Slayer, the way those mobs interact are actually mobs that are based on your hit chance, so you do more damage based on that. So it's better to have specific, tier 95 is always going to have higher accuracy. So
Yeah.
some stuff like Inquisitor or Hex Hunter, stuff like that doesn't work so well, but range has the arrows. Those arrows are super strong against specific things, so it almost feels like if you're not running the dungeon with range, you're doing it wrong. Or mage or something like that, whichever has the best AoE is makes it feel a little, I don't want to say clunky, but like you're not getting as much value. So I don't like having the thought of I need specific gear to do each dungeon.
Yeah, and mm, so I have very limited clears when it comes to Zamrock. I have like 14 kills on the boss, but it's just I feel like they're playing. I don't know how I want to go about this. I'm still trying to wake up this morning, and all my thoughts are all over the place. I like what they did with the Zamrock dungeon, but I feel like they were going back to a format that people did not like, or that it made it too easy to get money in the game, you know? Because with ED3, we had a lot of inflation in coins come into the game because there was actual bot farms
Yeah, I
with
just say a
ED.
lot of that was from botting, which I mean that shouldn't be something that they should take so lightly because they could definitely just go there, pick them out, research the account, and ban them. But they never seem to have the time or resource, and those are just obvious ones. Like everybody saw them.
And I think that's what helped the Zamrock dungeon, because there was a lot of corners and stuff. It wasn't like a laid out path. It seemed like a maze. So I like that aspect, but again, elite dungeons just seem like a lot of money. It it seems too easy to be botted, is what I'm saying. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent with this, but uh,
They need to add some more maybe randomization to the dungeon that would make it harder for a bot to make progress,
yeah,
that a human could figure it out.
yes, and like I said, that's why I like the Zamorakian dungeon, because it was very. It seemed like it was laced together, because you were going in buildings, out of buildings, down uh, like a aqueduct system, and then up again into more buildings, and you were just trying to navigate your way through this, which was very interesting. Whereas
Yeah.
the previous three, it's just a linear focus game. But I think they were still feeling it out. So yeah, that kind of covers all the combat and the Ancient Awakening. So I kind of want to move over to like a, how do I want theory crafting, and my theory crafting is for okay, with combat changes coming into the game, do you think that the other three combat styles should get basically a overhaul system like Necromancy gave, where it's a progression and you get a certain amount of quests that go with it, where you get Ariane, Ozan, and uh, what's his the melee guy's name? Not Ozan. Uh, damn it, I can't even think of his name. But you get all those characters,
Sir
and they're
Owen.
what?
Owen.
Sir Owen.
Sir Owen. Yes, there's two O's
Go
in
ahead.
there, and but each one of those guys or and gals are basically your teachers through that combat style. Should that be a thing going forward?
I
I would
don't
be
get why they
opposed.
didn't. Yeah, I don't get why they didn't use those characters because they're just. I mean, everybody knows those characters now because they were supposed to be part of some storyline. But I think that would make perfect sense to have Sir Owen as melee, Ozan as range, and then Ariana as the mage teacher. So they definitely could, and I just don't know why they haven't before Necromancy leaned into that kind of story aspect where they could use these things for other things besides their original intent.
And just giving more quests to each of the combat styles, but also being able to uh, what is it? Create your own gear. I think they're because necromancy is more of a self-sufficient combat style. I think the other ones should be. I know melee you can sit there and mine and smith, but with magic and range, you're heavily reliant upon crafting, which I don't think is fair. I think it should be a mix of both rune crafting and crafting, and then range should be a mixture of wood or fletching and crafting. So that way those skills can kind of get boosted, if that kind of makes sense.
Why can't they come out with a set of armor just like they did with necromancy for range?
That's what I'm
Mage, and
that's what I'm talking
is
about.
that what
But
you're trying to
With
say?
melee, the masterwork armor.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's
but
it,
with
it's just going
crafting,
to devalue current gear sets if they do that. The way it's scaled now, they would have to take other gear sets and up them to like 95, 100, or something like that because it's just not feasible to deal with the way current things currently are.
yeah,
Sirenic scales are already dirt cheap. It's like 6 mil for a full set of Sirenic, which is tier 90. So
but
you're better off
use
buying that than ever buying anything that's lower tier
yeah,
because
but
it's more
use
cost
Serenic
effective.
scales as like a component into the tier 90 craftable range armor, which I know is Serenic, but have it for that specific ability or combat style, I think would be kind of cool.
I just don't know how you would collect a resource because in this particular instance, everything's contained in necromancy. But if you do a different gear set, it's not going to be the same because range doesn't inherently produce range items, whereas necromancy does inherently through rituals produce the items required. It
Yeah.
takes from outside sources, but you're not going to have a ritual for range,
No.
right? There's not going to be anything that makes thematic sense. So, I mean, I'm all for gear being available in certain situations, but I don't think,
It's just a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's an interesting one to think about. If you were able to implement it, how would you go about it though?
Right.
For that, I really don't know, but personally, I think they should just take a look at tank gear as being the accessible gear style, um, because it's heavily underutilized in everything but magic right now. But I really like what they did with the necromancy tank gear and the shield option, because you can still do damage while using a shield, and now that you can use your conjures with the shield, you can actually do some ridiculous tanking stuff with necromancy, and you still, like I said, have some kind of damage. So
But isn't that what the defender, repriser, and whatever? I I think
I
the
don't think so.
magic isn't
I,
that
I, I
basically like their variant of the lesser
that allows
shield?
you to do offense, but it doesn't give you the insane defense that something like, if you use the spectral right now, um, that's 30% damage reduction. That is massive compared to what the other tank styles do. Is just give you high defense and some life points. The life points I think should be boosted on all tank gear, and it should be kind of like your learner set, so it should have some kind of defensive effect. So again, that's like necromancy has dodge chance, magic can have animate dead's like tank effect, or I've always thought that acto gear should be given a buff where it does reflect damage every time you get hit, so that way you do some offense by wearing defensive gear. It's never going to be as good as something like actual DPS gear, but that's not the point. The point is to make it somewhat useful in situations, especially for learning. You're still going to be able to do damage without having to actually do the abilities yourself. So I think tank gear would be a more accessible gear set that they could look at using, and then they would need to add some kind of like offensive shield abilities. So like giving double damage to reflect, or making shield bash not terrible. So
And I can
I
understand
like
that.
how you added that in, making shield bash
well,
not
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just everything that you said, I agree with. I just, I loved how you just added that in because it's true. And actually, yeah, most tank gear is learning. So, I mean, it would allow more players to be able to PVM and boss if they had some type of an actual tank set that is like, instead of doing ports and getting the death gear and the, singers outfit there, that's all tank gear. But people don't, they're not exposed to parts. They don't know it's even part of the game half the time. There's a lot of hidden parts in the game that they really kind of should touch on, or old gears that they could elaborate on, I think would be also a good point to add.
Yeah, and
I think. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I was gonna say, I think to make tank gear more viable, they need to maybe mix up, like you guys were saying, how some of the sets work. I feel like maybe they need to add some bosses that push people towards tank gear. Like, let's say tank gear in general reduces smaller hits of damage, but add bosses that do lots and lots of small hits of damage consistently, where power armor, you just have to shred through food to survive it, but with tank armor, it'd be bearable and you could get by using it.
I kind of like that idea. But my idea was they needed to add in more powerful bosses with a higher life point pool, and or Elder Rune dragons, because
And you're
those,
talking like more endurance battles where you can't bring enough food with you and you need the tank gear to survive it.
yeah, something that it's a longer fight, kind of like the Zamrock fight. I know people have been getting times of like 7 minutes or so. I can't remember, but something in like raids. Raids would be a very good endurance ish fight for a solo player. Not having the 10, but for one player. Because I remember the RS guy would sit there and do that, and it took him 45 minutes to complete the entire Beastmaster's Durzak raid. Because he had to keep running around. But something...
Yeah, he was doing it solo, so...
Yeah, to do it to that extent is a little bit much to ask of a player to dedicate themselves an hour just to get one boss kill, but something along the lines of 10 to maybe 12 minutes in order to complete. Not...
I was
It's
just
kind of
getting
like
really bad.
Zuck.
Yeah, I was going to
Yes.
say, I'm getting really bad images of fight games
Yeah.
all over again.
Because Zuck, if you're not particularly skilled at it, tank armor is awesome and helps you survive all the crap you have to deal with.
I told you,
At higher
Frosty.
levels, you just use power armor and kill everything quickly, and they don't have time to damage you.
But yeah, I think if they started implementing even Slayer creatures like that, where they have 100k life points, would be kind of cool. Because we do so much damage now. Just something along those lines. I know that's asking for a lot of power creep, but it's something that I feel like needs to be in the game. But that's, I guess, the Halloween event, but I don't really want to touch on that if nobody really cares for it. I don't know if you guys do.
Don't need
I
to.
do, yeah. There's not really much to say on that. A lot of people are unhappy because there's not enough drops in it. A lot of people are kind of miffed about it because it took so long to go from 5 oddments to, or hodments to 25. They had a lot of issues. Some people like it, some people don't. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole other than that.
Yeah.
If you're effective at it, it's a good supply of bonus XP.
Yes, it is.
If you're an iron, it's just a good source of cosmetics.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I really did like the... Okay, I'm sorry, but I do like the Shadow hero sets that they have on there right now. I have almost all of them on 2 tunes, which...
Nice.
I like them because they're... I like those characters. They had a nice appearance to them.
My disappointment is the other sets. You have to have keepsakes to be able to keep them.
Yes.
That was a little disappointing.
A little scummy, yeah.
Yeah, a little. Yeah,
They went
that didn't
into, hey, buy keepsake keys in order to use this as an
in order
outfit.
to use this normal. Yeah, that kind of irked me. But we all have things that irk us in this game. We played it for so long. We're still here. So they just need to kind of like cater a little bit, and say, hey, I understand we need to make money, but in the same respect, put on a discount for keys then if you're going to do that. It is kind of like you say, scummy, but that's.
And to that point, I say,
I don't give a damn.
I know.
because, you know what,
But,
Jagex,
yeah,
you
fair
kind of
enough.
lost me with Hero Pass, but I'm still here.
Yeah, kind of my point. I mean, they make mistakes, they make up for them, they try and give us back, they understand they got to listen to us a little bit more. I think they kind of got that clear message that the community is very strong in this game compared to other games.
Which
And,
which
it's a nice thing.
I will say, that is why I made the RuneScape Herald, because I saw how strong the community is. I wanted to talk to people like Dragon, like Snappy, and just be able to get like a different perspective on a game that I've been playing myself, from somebody who has maybe even more experience or has done more challenging stuff than I have, and bring it to the community and say, hey, we're not all like these people over there on Reddit who like are dictating what needs to be done and stuff, but we're the people who still pay for the game, who still play the game, and are not going anywhere because we still enjoy it. And that's... I am glad you guys came on today. I am super thankful. Going forward, I hope this thing just grows even more. and I hope to have you guys on again. So
Yes.
I think
For sure.
this was a very informative one. I would love to have you guys back. Like I said, Dragon, where can they find you?
I have a YouTube channel, but I don't actually know what it is. But I changed it once before, so I don't know if it's your boy Dragon or just your boy Dragon. Check.
Okay.
Sorry.
I can post it in the description, but you don't stream it all, do you?
I do. I just normally stream bossing content. It's not that interesting. Usually, it's just me rinsing Raziel or Talos or stuff like that. But
I mean, that's
sometimes. And then YouTube is at It's Your Boy Dragon, and then Twitch is something different. So
yeah. But bossing content is what keeps RuneScape going. Snappy, you're just around in the community. I'd loved picking your brain today and getting all your feedback on all these combat changes, and even theory crafting the idea of adding in basically the characters to the other combat styles. But this has been real fun, guys. I want to do it again, but I'm going to cut this one a bit short this time because my brain is fried. If you haven't,
A lot of info.
well, that and I've been writing a paper this week, two papers, and then one exam. So I've been cramming a lot. But yeah, go follow your It's Your Boy Dragon on YouTube and on Twitch. And for that, guys, I am happy this was a successful RuneScape Herald. Good night, everybody, and enjoy RuneScape while it's still here.